So now that we have the HTML built for our form, we're ready to start creating some styles. I've already opened my style.css file, and I'm going to go ahead and find a location to place the styles on the page. We'll begin by making our small screen styles first. So I want to build the styles and create the look for the form in the smaller screen. So I'm going to make sure that all of the styles that I create go above any media queries that I might have. And I've actually already created a comment here that says form, and I'll just copy this and say end form. So all of my form styles that I'm going to create are going to go within this CSS comment that I've created right here. We'll begin by making the first style for the input field. So I'm going to go ahead and make a rule for the input fields, and in addition to that I'm going to add text area, button, and select tags. So all of these tags are going to be affected by the rules that I place here. We're going to start off by using a vendor prefix for WebKit, and we're going to use WebKit dash, and I'm going to go ahead and type appearance. And I'm going to set the appearance to none. The appearance property is used to display an element using a platform native styling based on the user's operating system's theme. So we just want to go ahead and zero all of those things out by default. So I'm going to make a rule, and I'll just copy what I have right here for Mozilla as well. So this will just strip out any formatting that might be present from Mozilla and WebKit by default. We're going to set the border of the elements to none. We'll set the background color to white. I'm going to set the border radius to 0. I'm going to set a padding all the way around of 5 pixels, margin of 0, and then we're going to specifically have the margin on the bottom be 10 pixels. If I save and we go look in the browser, you can see when I refresh, it's just going to make the form fields a little bit thicker, and this will ensure that these are going to be easier for my user to be able to click on, especially when they're dealing with a smaller screen device. You might remember that when we built our form, we applied a ID of contact form. And this is the only form that we're using on our website, but just in case you have more form elements, sometimes you might want to uniquely identify the form with a name because you might want to style things a little bit differently. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to specify that I want to make a rule for my contact form, and I'm going to set the width of the form to 80%. I'm going to use the margin of 0 for the top and bottom and auto for the right and left, and I'm going to specify that I want the max width to be 500 pixels. We'll set the background color of our form to be DDD, which is a light gray shade, and then I'm going to set a border radius of 10 pixels. In addition to this, I'm going to set a box shadow, and this is going to just add a little bit of a drop shadow, so I'm going to do 10 pixels for horizontal and vertical. I'm going to do a 20 pixel for blur, and I'm going to set a color of 666, which is a mid-tone shade. And we'll go ahead and we'll set the margin on the bottom to be 2 and this is just going to spread the form away from the other elements. Alright, when we save now and we refresh in the browser, you can see that I have a little bit of a background color that is appearing on my form right there. One too many sixes for my box shadow. There we go. So now we have a box shadow. So this is just going to kind of frame the form. As soon as I've made my form smaller, you can see actually the numbers that are appearing from the ordered list. We'll be getting rid of these eventually as well, so don't worry that those are there. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the border from my field sets. So by default, field sets have the borders. I want to remove those, and I'm just going to go ahead and specify that I want to remove the border on field sets that are part of the contact form. Again, I don't have any other forms, but I like to be more specific here just in case you have another form where you might want those things to exist. I'm going to set the border to none, and we'll also just zero out our padding and our margin. Then I'm going to make another rule, and I'm going to copy this selector right here, and I'm going to use the colon before. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use the content, and then I'm going to pass on attribute, and I'm going to use title. So what we're doing is we're targeting the title attribute of the field set. So if we looked in our form, we set all of our field sets to have titles. So we're going to be using that. I'm going to tell these to display as block level elements. I'm going to set the padding on them to 20 pixels for the top, 10 pixels for the right, 3 pixels for the bottom, and 10 pixels for the left. I'm going to specify that I want the font weight to be bold. I'm going to set the font size to be 1.25 ems. I'm going to set the color to be #777, which is a mid-tone gray. I'm going to set the margin to center, so I'll use 0 and auto to be able to force centering. I'm going to use a text shadow. So add a drop shadow to my text, and we'll use 1 pixel, 1 pixel, and 1 pixel, and I'm going to add a color of white, and then I'm going to add a border on the bottom, and we'll set that to 3 pixels. So if we save now and we refresh in the browser, this is what our page looks like. You can see that I have a redundancy here from the text that's appearing from the legend and then the text that we're actually getting from our field set, which in this case is the get in touch, and you can see how this has a little bit of a more 3D type look, and that's a result of that white that we're using as a text shadow. Now I want to get rid of the legend text, so I'm just going to go ahead and make a rule for my legend text and tell it to display as none. And let's be more specific with our selector here. We'll use #contact_form legend, and we're just going to tell this to display as none. So if we look now in our browser, you can see that that information has gone away. Alright, the next thing we'll do is we'll tackle the list items.